Hey, what is up? What's going on? My name is Arvind Ramakrishna. Welcome to Driven to Draw. This is podcast episode number 12. We got a very special guest today. It is featured artist and YouTube sensation Stan Prokopenko from Proko.com. He's got an excellent YouTube channel. He's got about 450,000 or 430,000 subscribers and climbing. And once you listen to this episode, you will understand why. Without further ado, let's welcome Stan Prokopenko. Okay, folks, welcome to Driven to Draw. This is Arvind Ramakrishna, and I have a very special guest with us today. In fact, it is an honor for me to introduce YouTube sensation Stan Prokopenko. Now, Stan is an artist. He's also a phenomenal teacher, and he is a budding entrepreneur. And one of the things that that a lot of people are probably going to be curious is, why am I even interviewing somebody that is an artist versus a designer or somebody that's in the automotive industry? We're not just going to be, what's really exciting about Stan is that we're not just going to be talking about just his particular craft as being an artist, but also some of his other skill sets that enables him to do what he does, whether it is online, whether it is building a powerful following with people who just love his work and the way he teaches. So we're really going to be getting into some really cool conversations. And now Stan is originally from Ukraine. He came to the United States at the age of 6, and he found his love for drawing at the age of 13. From what I understand,
Your homework.
Very young, right? So yeah. I just wanted to introduce Stan. I'm really thrilled, and I thank you for your time for wanting to come over and do this interview. So I want to say welcome to Stan.
Yeah, pleasure to speak with you.
Awesome. One thing that I noticed about your background is that you at a pretty early age, you were very interested in drawing. And I know that, a lot of people at a young age, whether you're like 5 or 6, kids like to draw. At what point, why at age 13? Because even at age 13, you're in 7th grade, you felt that at that time, you know what, this is what I love to do.
Well, it was because that's when I got access to an art teacher. So it became more than just doodling around. It was like, oh, this thing I do after school that someone helps me with, The way it happened was that my parents helped their Russian friend come from Russia to the United States. They got him like a guest visa or something. And I think it was like an invitation thing. I don't know exactly how it works, and in return, they're like, hey, can you give our son lessons? Because he studied at an academy in Russia. So they're like, hey, our son likes to draw. You want to give him some lessons, like once a week or something. And so he would come once a week and give me some painting lessons. And that, we did that for a few months, and that got me really interested. And after we were done, I continued to paint. And so that's when I think I got, really into it. And then a few years right after that, I got into high school, so 9th grade. And that's when I started taking animation classes in high school. And I took it every semester of high school. So there's 8 semesters in 4 years, and I took animation class every semester as my elective. Yeah. So, yeah, I was really into it. And then as a junior in high school, I started taking after-school classes at a local atelier.
What's an atelier? Sorry.
An atelier, that's just the French word for art school.
Okay.
But it was a private school, so it's not like a college or anything. It's like you go and you pay for classes. It's more of like a
apprenticeship or something? Or no?
More of an apprenticeship type of thing, where it's a small group. There's a few teachers. You work with the teachers.
How many students are in the class?
Each class, between, I think 12 was 8 was the minimum, because without 8, they would just cancel the class. The maximum they would have is 25. But for a
Whoa.
class that size, they would actually have 2 teachers. So then it would just go back down to 12 students per teacher. So it would be pretty small, average like 15,
So
you know.
for those classes, I mean, how long were the classes? I mean, was it like an all day
No,
class of just drawing
they
or
had 3 hours per class, and then they had 3 classes per day, and you take whatever you want. So like when I was in high school, I couldn't take any day classes during the week, so I would take maybe like one night class, like from 7 to 10, maybe like 2 weekend classes in the morning and afternoon, and that would be good. And I mean, that's 3 classes per week would be pretty good. Then after high school, I started taking more than that. I got, I went a little more full time and took classes for about 6 years there. So
6 years?
yeah,
Wow. Wow, that's a long time.
yeah, I stayed
And
there for about 11 because I would after about 6 years I started teaching there at the same school, and I taught for another 5. Yes, at the same atelier.
okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that is pretty interesting. So at what age did you finish? At what age did you start teaching?
15. I think I was like 21. Yeah, I think I was 21 when I started teaching there.
21. So, I mean, as far as they do, that the classes are structured, at that time, did you start to um, enter into any kind of competitions and to
Yes.
establish your, okay, you did. All right. Tell me about that. How did that kind of work? Because obviously when you're going to school um, and after you graduate and you start teaching, now the thing is to how do you get your work kind of well
Yeah.
known or at least
Well,
kind of
first of all,
position yourself?
we didn't graduate from that school. There's no degree. Yeah, the Atelier isn't an accredited school. It's more about just learning the trade that you're learning, and that's it. Because when the government starts having control, it becomes a little something different, um, especially with art. So yeah, there was no end. I could have been there for 30 years if I wanted to. So I don't remember at what point I started entering competitions. I might have still been a student. Um, but there's a good amount of groups around the United States, like Portrait Society, California Art Club. There's a bunch, Oil Painters of America. And I started entering all of those every year. Sometimes I would get into the shows, and they would, they'd have a group show, and then my painting would be there. Every once in a while, I think like maybe once or twice, you win an award. And that's actually when things start happening. Is when you win an award, people start noticing. Magazines notice, and they put you in articles. And um, during one of the shows, it was in Scottsdale, I won the People's Choice Award. And I was going around the galleries there in Scottsdale. They have a pretty good uh, what do you call it, town. There's a bunch of galleries there, and pretty big ones too. So I was going around just meeting the people, trying to see if I can get into a gallery. And when I said that I won the People's Choice, they were really interested. And then eventually I got into that gallery. So it definitely helps.
One other thing I wanted to kind of go back on as far as comments, because I know that when I was younger, I also wanted to kind of be an artist because I drew all the time in class. I drew all the way through high school, and at some point I kind of regretted that I didn't actually invest in myself a little bit at that time. But I also remember that my parents were always afraid that I would go into art because they were always worried about the starving artist type of thing.
Yeah.
How did your parents feel about you wanting to delve into this particular area? Were they worried about as far as making a
Yeah.
living? And
Yeah, they were worried. My mom was scared. But I'm pretty stubborn, so I didn't really listen to anything. I was like, I don't want to go to learn other stuff. This is what I'm doing. And I mean, I was lucky that they supported me anyway. You know, some kids wouldn't have that option. But they supported me. They kept paying for my school. But, my mom was still scared. But she knew that it should be my choice. Otherwise, I would not like her. Right? I mean, at that age, it becomes like, the parents should have done their job by that point. And, I think good parents understand that, and they let the kids make the decision.
Now, the other thing that you mentioned was your passion for animation. If you had such passion for the animation, why didn't you pursue animation then? And I only say that because I know that you created an animated short film that got a lot of visibility. I think the game of pool.
Yeah.
And I guess it was in, I think, some American Airlines flights or something like that. And
it got
so
a lot
it's
of
interesting. Yeah. So why, when I look at, the artist thing, which is obviously very cool, then I look at the animation thing, which is really thriving, and with the special effects in the movies, storytelling, and you're an excellent storyteller, right? Because of your videos. What made you not choose that path?
A few things. So I was into animation during high school, and I created that short film during high school, right about the time that I started taking classes at the atelier. It was like they kind of happened right at the same time. And so when I started taking classes at the atelier, my interest started shifting to more fine art because I was influenced by the atelier. I was surrounded by great painters, illustrators, and I just couldn't help it but be interested in that. Yeah, I was inspired, and I was like, I want to do that. And also because I think I was a senior, I got an internship at Sony Online Entertainment. They make EverQuest. And I got a little taste of what it was like to be an animator. And I didn't really like it. I didn't like sitting at a cubicle in the dark all day. It was really quiet. And also, I don't like working for anyone. It's just
bingo.
So I was like, I just don't want to do this. I don't want being stuck in a cubicle 50 hours a week doing this. I want to do my own projects. So if I'm going to do animation, I want to make my own animations. But at the same time, I was getting influenced by the fine art world, and so I just kind of switched.
I love that, and we're going to touch on that, by the way, because that's a perfect segue into the other conversations we're going to have. Now, as you were developing your skill sets and you were taking courses or taking the classes at the atelier, what were some of the impactful artists? Was the impactful artists people that were actually teaching you, or was it things that you were reading in books? What were some of those, artists that kind of inspired you when you're in school?
Okay, so the artists that inspired me that I actually learned from, the main one's Jeff Watts. He started the school that I went to. He taught a bunch of the classes that I took. Eric Gist was a big one. I took a lot of his classes. And then there were also a bunch of teachers there that were becoming teachers right as I was, taking classes there. So they were like transitioning from being students to teachers, like Ben Young, Lucas Graciano, Meadow Gist. And I believe they're all still teaching at the atelier. So if people go on the website, they could see their names. Ron Lemon was a big one. And then, I took workshops from people as well that were not at the atelier, like Steve Houston, Glenn Villepeu. and a few others, but those two were the most inspirational to me from workshops. And then you're also asking about just artists that I was inspired by from books and stuff. Okay, so yeah, recently, actually, I just discovered her recently, Colleen Berry. She has a very good academic style. And so for anybody that's anyone that's a student right now and they're trying to draw in a classical way and learning how to see, Colleen Berry is a really good example to try to go towards. Because she doesn't get too fancy. She does stylize a little bit, but it's only to exaggerate things that a student should actually look for in showing form and light. And so she's a really good example to study from. There's a lot of the Russian Academy students. They're similar to Colleen Berry, where it's like if you're a student and you're studying, try to copy them, because that's the academic style that you're getting towards. It's like perfection of depicting form. After you reach that level, then you kind of start breaking the rules and creating your own style, and messing things up a little bit.
Right, that you learn the fundamentals so well that that's where kind of break away and to kind of develop your own technique.
Yeah, because if you look at the Russian Academy students, it's kind of hard to tell them apart, because they are all kind of at that peak of representing reality and changing things in a way to show form in the best way possible and to show anatomy in the best way possible. And there's only so many ways you could do that until you start just adding too much style into it. And they call that an academic style.
Do you find it was kind of that it's when you work with other academics or other instructors, or you look at a particular style, do you find it sometimes hard, because as you're trying to practice and emulate their style a bit to learn it, do you find it hard to kind of break away? I mean, as you've been doing it for such a long time, because there's this kind of muscle memory as you keep repeating that process. And then now you have to kind of figure out a way, now how am I going to kind of create something completely different that is my own style and that makes sense? Is that just really a situation where you got to learn the basics, or you find that just there's a difficulty in it still?
Well, I think that's one step in becoming a master. Is you first you have to learn everything that you can about just depicting form and all the rules that the academic schools teach you, and then you have to learn about yourself after that. Or I mean, you also learn about yourself while you're doing that, but at a certain point, you start really focusing on that. It's like, what do I want to do with my art? I just think that's just one of the hurdles you're going to have to get over later on in your career.
It's a pretty stressful thing to go through. How did you kind of deal with a lot of that stuff?
Well, right? I'm still kind of going through that. I don't know exactly where I'm going to end up. I'm still really close to that academic style, especially because I'm still teaching a lot. And when I teach, I don't want to put too much style into it. I want to teach more of an academic style. And so a lot of my drawings that I'm doing right now are for my videos rather than exploring myself.
So when you have your video courses, then you're really teaching the academic style because you want people to do it? Okay.
Yes.
Is there still a little bit of that humor like you have in the YouTube videos, or is it kind of strictly more?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's humor in it. I'm just talking about in the way I'm drawing. The way it looks, it's more academic, but the way I present the information could be humorous and lighthearted. But I don't add too much, flair to it, or I think I will, I will add a little bit more of that, but I just don't want to get too far down that path because I don't think that's fair for the students, because then they'll just be influenced by a very specific, style rather than the medium academic style. But yeah, go ahead. Ask your next question.
So what are some of the challenges you face when you're teaching students? Do you find that students, obviously if they're coming to the atelier, they're pretty serious, right?
Okay.
About what they want to do. But do you ever find situations where you find students that are not kind of putting in the right kind of effort into learning material and or not getting inspired enough?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's the whole range of people of some people are learning how to draw because they kind of want to approach it as a hobby. They've always wanted to draw, and they have another job and another career, but now they want to try out drawing. And so, they're not necessarily going to spend 30, 40, 50 hours a week practicing. They're going to maybe spend, an hour every few days. And that's not that's not even close to being enough to make any kind of progression. So there's that problem where people just don't realize that this is a serious thing. You can't just kind of mingle in it and get good. And of course, they always compare themselves to people that do spend 50 hours a week practicing. They're like, how come I'm not this good? And then that's always challenging to explain to them that they're not spending enough time on it, that it's a very difficult thing to learn. It's very difficult. And then another difficult part about teaching is that every student has something, they have different weaknesses and different strengths. And trying to figure out what those are and how to explain something to someone and what it is that someone doesn't understand, that's always difficult. Just by looking at like a few of their drawings, you have to figure out how, what do they need to work on, and how do I best explain it to them. That's hard, but eventually you start seeing patterns in your students, and you start figuring it out. It gets easy. It's teaching is a skill, just like drawing is. So you get better at it, at identifying problems and that sort of thing.
Influences and some of the people that you mentioned, the people that in your atelier. What about some of the books? We were going to kind of get into some of the books that are also kind of influenced you. So let's talk about some of your favorite books and what you've learned from it, and how you've kind of integrated some of those things into whether it's your teaching methods or to at least help your own progression in your art.
Yeah, so I'm prepared. I got a stack of books here. So some of these and maybe a few others that I'm not going to mention are on proko.com/books. I just have a list of books in there, so people can go on there. But I have 3 stacks here. I'm going to start with the instructional books.
Okay.
Because when you're learning to draw, you need instructional books. Of course, I got to start with
Andrew Loomis.
Andrew
Yes.
Loomis, of course. This one's Figure Drawing for All It's Worth.
Just real quick, a side note. They finally reissued that, because when I looked for that book like 3 years ago, it was like $400.
Yeah. I didn't own this until about 2 years ago, I think. Because, it was ridiculous. You had to buy it on eBay for like $400. So I just had a PDF of it for the longest time. But when they reissued it, I bought it immediately. I was like, wow, it's an actual book. This one, yes. But he also has like 5 other books. He has, Drawing the Head and Hands. He has a lot. So just look up on Amazon, and they're all on Amazon now. I think maybe one might have gone out of print now, but Yeah. When I was purchasing them like 2 years ago, they were all on Amazon. There was like 5 or 6 of them, and they're all good. For painting, this is all you need. Alla Prima by Richard Schmidt. It's a great book by a really good artist. He recently released number 2, so it's a lot thicker. I haven't read through the whole thing of number 2 yet. So, of course, James Gurney. We got Imaginative Realism.
Yes, I have that in his other one too.
His other one.
Yep, I got both of them. Both
Color
of them.
and Light. This is great when you're starting to learn color.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a great book. Great book.
So both of his are great. And then we get into anatomy books because I'm really into figure drawing. And so we're going to start with Artistic Anatomy by
Doctor.
Paul Richet. Very good. This is kind of like a Bible. Yeah.
I like that. You know what? I'm looking at... I want to talk about this real quick with what you're doing with your books because you have tagged them and you've you've marked them in specific spots. And do you write notes in those books?
Not in this one. And usually no. Usually I don't. I take notes in a separate place on the computer.
Okay.
So I could search through them. Yeah. Because if I take notes in a book, I'll never find it. I mean, yeah. All my notes are on a website called Workflowy.
Okay. Sometimes I just put the Post-it notes in there.
Yeah. Let's see. Bamas. Gottfried Bamas. This is the English version. There's the German version, which is I think the original, but they recently made the English version. I think most people don't know about it. It's slightly different, but it has, I think, most of what the German version has, plus some others. It's I don't know exactly what the difference is with the text, but most of the images are in here, and I've noticed, I have both, and I've noticed that this one has some stuff that the German version doesn't have. So he's good for structure of anatomy.
Okay.
So he shows you, major forms, and how to draw those forms. Whereas Paul Richet, it's more of like a little Bible of what is each muscle, where does it attach.
Okay. Very technical then.
Yeah, this is more like for artists. They're both for artists, but this one is like, how do you actually draw this stuff? Bridgman. You know Bridgman?
No, I don't know this one.
This one is a little harder to study from. I would definitely not start with it, but it's good for people that already have a pretty good grasp on anatomy. He's good at really showing the forms, kind of like Bomis, but Bomis is much simpler, much better for beginners. Yeah. So, and this is also a good book. And then this one is also like a little Bible. This is probably the one I've used most. I have a lot of tape and stuff, and it's coming apart quite a bit. But yeah, this is each muscle has like 2 pages on it. Like every muscle in the body in here has like 2 pages, and it's like everything you need to know about every muscle. Okay, so those are all the instructional books. Then of course you need to get just books like by artist artwork. Like this is a Norman Rockwell book, and this one actually shows his reference photos and his paintings.
Norman Rockwell, yeah, that is awesome. I gotta get that. Yeah, he's phenomenal.
Yeah,
I've always enjoyed his, the stuff over at the barber shop, and he's got just capturing slices of Americana. It's just amazing.
Yeah, like you got this painting.
Yeah.
And this side shows his photos that he took for it. So and the book is that's what the book is about. It just shows his photos and his paintings. So it's good to see how he changed the photo and how he made it better, because usually he made the photos better. He didn't just copy.
Yeah, he enhanced it. Yep.
Yeah. Repin. It's in Russian, but yeah, Ilya Repin is the artist. Of course, Sargent and Soroya. I think this is a Chinese book on Russian art. So you got Russian artwork, Russian student work in there. Feshin, also a Russian artist.
You haven't opened that yet.
I did.
Oh, okay.
I have opened it. It's just, I mean, I've even taped. It's just a protective cover on it. Yeah, it's open. Leyendecker, another American illustrator. He's kind of like Rockwell, but I think he stylizes a little bit more. And Richard Schmidt, same guy that wrote Alla Prima. He has books on portrait, landscape, and I think still life.
Beautiful.
And that's all I got.
Beautiful.
There's a lot more, but
I wanted now. Let me get this one real
I
quick.
could go on forever.
I had, and I don't know, this guy is very stylized, but Bern Hogarth.
Oh yeah.
Right. So I used to, when I was younger, I used to just sit there and practice this stuff for like hours and hours. Just create, sketchbooks with sketchbooks, but I bought all his stuff.
Yeah.
And then another guy that I thought was really awesome, Basil Gogos.
Yeah, I don't have his book, but this is the art of.
Yeah, the art of Basil
okay.
Gogos, and his sense of he's the one that's done all these movie poster art.
Yeah.
Way back from like the 50s, and he's done it's his sense of color and the saturation of his color, and he does the same thing with showing how he sets up the pictures, where he's got people that model, right, that he uses as models, and he just kind of shows his process. Let me see if I can find one of those. But his sense of color and lighting is what's really different, because he's taking something that's pretty dark, and he's really heavily stylizing everything on here.
Well, and he's creating movie posters, so it has to be really
interesting, right? Yep, exactly. Exactly. What do you think about people like, whether it's Basil Gogos or the commercial art like Drew Struzan? Drew Struzan is like one of my other favorite guys, because I've always loved his just being able to tell that full story in a movie poster with his art and just his compositions and things like that. Have you ever really thought of doing things like that, or do you like to kind of strictly just stick with traditional?
I've thought about it, and I've done a few illustrations. I mean, not like in the style of Drew Struzan, but I mean just like illustration. But I like a more fine artsy feeling type of painting better. I don't know. There's definitely a lot of overlap between fine art and illustration.
Yeah.
I think the best fine art is actually one that's heavily influenced by illustration, personally. Like Morgan Weisling, if you've heard of him, he had a pretty good career in movie posters, and then he switched to fine art, and he's like one of my top favorite artists of all time, because he took his discipline of illustration, of really thinking through the composition and the storytelling, designing everything, and bringing that into fine art. It just made his paintings just so much better.
Morgan, what's his last name again?
Weisling, Weistling. I'm waiting for him to make a book of his art, but he has one, but I think it's all of his like Jesus paintings or something. And the best ones that I've seen by him are more of his like just illustration, like his larger pieces of like cabin life and like prairie. The subject matter could be better, but his execution on it is phenomenal.
Kissing the Face of God.
Are you looking at the book?
Well, no, I'm trying to just connect. I don't know why I'm not able to connect here. It seems to be slowing down. Maybe it's because I'm on Skype, so my internet is like slowing down. I thought I can kind of look this thing up. But another guy that I really liked as far as anatomy, or not just anatomy, but just bringing a certain level of energy, was Steve Houston.
Yes, he's on my list. Did I not? I don't think I mentioned everybody. Oh yeah, I mentioned him as someone I took a workshop from. Yeah.
You took a workshop from him. He was at Art Center, correct?
I think he used to. He doesn't live in California anymore.
Okay, but he was teaching at Art Center before, right?
I think so.
Yeah, and I
I'm
think
not
yeah,
sure.
and a lot of his stuff is really like sports related, boxing.
Yeah,
and
his recent stuff is all boxing. Well, for the men, for women, I think they're mostly just like in cool poses, dynamic poses and stuff.
I think what I really love about his work is the sense of the kinetic energy that you see in the movement, which is really, really difficult to do. And it's almost like drapery. You know, like the folds and stuff like that. It's like taking some of those elements and he's carving that around all the impact areas. And you can just you can really feel it. It's a sensational method of being able to bring people in and feel just the power of the punch.
That's an example of someone who knows his anatomy so well that he can change things in order to really create something amazing. Like he designs his anatomy, like you said, like drapery, where he can lead you through the body and he can create areas of tension and movement. And yeah, he's awesome.
He is. I keep looking at his stuff. I remember looking at his stuff like 10 years ago. I'm like, oh man, this guy is just awesome.
I actually made his website.
You did?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
How did you get into doing that for his website? Creating his website?
I did a whole bunch of stuff for businesses before I started making videos. Yeah, I think I had like 6 or 7 failing businesses before I started Proko.com.
No kidding. Oh, we're gonna get into that stuff too. We're gonna save those stories. All right.
Yeah.
Now, regarding your own artwork, during that process of when you were teaching and then trying to get your name out there, when you're trying to create something that is your own, and you've been now kind of heavily influenced by the people around you, the people that have taught you, the experiences that you've had with relating to reading books, having that influence your work. When you start, what is your actual process when you want to now create a painting and to create that piece that's telling a compelling story? How do you go about that process from the ideation stage? Do you sketch things out first before you paint? What does that kind of process look like, and how long does that typically take for you?
Okay, yeah. So if you're talking specifically about telling a story, so a portrait, like if I get a commission, that doesn't really necessarily have much of a story, so that process is much more simple. But if I'm creating my own piece, like, and I kind of want it to be more of an illustration where there's something happening, it always starts in the idea stage. Obviously, you just kind of start brainstorming. Okay, what's happening? What's the story? This is all verbal. These are just ideas. It's not visual yet. It's like, what message am I trying to get from this? What's the purpose of this? And usually I have a bunch of ideas. I come up, I take a few of my favorites, and then I'll actually start sketching them out just from my head, very loose, trying to think of different camera angles, exploring with, how many people are in this thing? What's the scene like? Where are they? And just start exploring through thumbnail stages. And then eventually you start hitting little gems like, oh, I really like the way this looks, and it flows like this, and it helps to get, bring the eye to that center of attention of what this person's doing, because that's the main part of the story. And then you'll say, like, hey, I really like this one, but I want to explore maybe just changing it a little bit. So you do another little thumbnail. Eventually you come up with a favorite, right? So then when I come up with a favorite, and I said, okay, I'm done, I'm going to do this one, then I'll hire models, and I'll actually photograph them in the poses that I've sketched. I'll light them in the way I want them to be lit. And then if there's a scene, or, if it's an environment, I'll try to find an environment similar to that somewhere near me. And I just gather reference. Okay, then I put it all together in Photoshop, kind of like a giant collage of stuff, right? It sometimes things don't work necessarily, like the perspective. When I take the photographs, I try to make sure the perspective is all the same, but things aren't going to be right. I'm going to have to correct a lot of stuff in my drawing. So then after that, I might do a larger drawing, not larger, but like, maybe like not like thumbnail size, but an actual drawing. And I'll actually start putting together and see how it all looks like in a drawing. I might do some value comps with all that stuff and try to, make sure all the value, the shape composition, value composition, all that's working. I might do color studies and actually figure out the color schemes and everything. If it's very heavy on anatomy, I might do some anatomy studies and actually figure out how I'm going to design the anatomy. Depends, if people are clothed, I'm not going to do that. What other studies? Rhythms. I'll do some gesture studies and try to find movement through it. So I do a lot of studies, a lot of little sketches preparing for it, because I found that if I really think through all of this stuff, it'll help me know what I'm doing in the actual the final painting.
The quality of the work will kind of show up in the final painting.
Yeah, and it'll be easier. It'll be much more enjoyable, and I'll be able to focus more on the execution of the painting rather than trying to figure out the colors. If I already have my colors figured out, I can just focus on executing it well. There's a great quote I think I heard yesterday. It's like, if someone has like 6 hours to chop down a tree, they'll spend the first 4 hours sharpening their saw, right? So, otherwise, because if you have a dull saw, it's going to take more than 6 hours. But if you have a really sharp one, it'll take less than 2 hours, whatever, So approach a painting in that way. Don't just jump in and hope that you're going to figure it all out. There's so much to figure out that if you try to do it all on the fly, you're juggling all these balls, and they're going to collapse. You're going to run into so many problems. You're going to have to scrape the painting. You start over, and that's demoralizing. It's frustrating. And if you're frustrated, then you're not going to perform as well. When everything is smooth, it's so much better. So prep work, I love it.
So with all that prep work, then how long does the actual painting take for you to do once you've done all the prep work?
It really depends.
It depends, of course,
on the complexity of it, the size, the complexity. Yeah. It's like if there's only one person in it, I only have to do one portrait. If there's 10 people in it, I have to do 10 portraits. It's going to take 10 times as long to finish those portraits. So it really depends. But I could say if you go to stanprokopenko.com, there's a painting of a father teaching his son how to chop wood.
I am actually there right now.
Okay. So that's probably my most complex painting. That's one where I did all that stuff that I told you about, where I photographed the models and did all these comps. I think I might have a blog post on actually showing all my work for that. If we do, we can put it in the show notes.
It's gorgeous.
Um,
Chopping lessons, correct? 36 by 48.
chopping lessons, yeah. So it's a bigger one. It's like 3 by 4 feet.
That's awesome.
That painting, I think the prep work took like 2 weeks. And then the actual painting probably took another week and a half, maybe.
You know what I also like? One of the ones that I was looking at it because I want to talk to you about this was Pride. The painting
The
Pride.
painting Pride?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I really actually kind of enjoyed that. And I think what I almost zero in on is just the red.
It's a traditional Ukrainian head wrap.
Okay, head wrap. Yeah, okay, head wrap is good.
I forgot the Russian word for it, but
yeah, it's just really cool to see because you've just got the just the saturation of that color and just the right amount of contrast above her head that pops all that out. And just the complementary colors, right? You got the red and the green, and that was one of the ones that I really liked. And then there's the one with the brothers, which is pretty touching.
Oh, that's interesting. That's it's me and my brother. I'm the younger one, and that's actually just I painted that from a photo that it was from a black and white photo. So I had to invent the colors.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it was, I at least had the values, if you have the values, the colors you can play with the colors quite a bit. But yeah, it's just an old photograph from Russia, in the 80s. My dad tinkered in photography. He had his own like little red room in the house that he made, I think, in the closet or something.
Is there anybody else in your family that's artistically inclined or likes to draw or?
No artists. My dad likes photography, but no, he doesn't. He's got a PhD in biochemistry, and my mom does as well. My mom's biochemist as well. My brother just got his law degree, and he just passed his bar exam. So they're all more like technical, law and biology.
But another one that I really liked here was Sunset Walk.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's my wife.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of my early paintings were just like family members and my girlfriend at the time, not my wife. Yeah, I mean, they're free models, right? So.
Yeah. So yeah. You did the same thing? Did you take pictures? Obviously, you took a picture and then, okay.
For that one, we actually went to the mall and bought a dress. Because for that one, I actually had a vision. I was like, I want to paint you in like a sunset with a white dress walking through a field. It's like a really cheesy painting. But I had this vision. I was like, let's try it out. And so we went to the mall. We got a white dress, went out to the canyon here in San Diego and did a photo shoot. Yeah.
Now, another one, Annette, capturing the innocence of this little girl. And
Annette. That's That's the one where she's standing on like a brick pathway, right? Yeah. Yeah. That was actually a commission.
From a picture? Because one thing I noticed is just the innocence of the face and just the tilting of her foot.
Oh yeah. But yeah, I didn't design that. I mean, that was in the photo. That's her personality. So that was in the photo. It's a commission, and so usually the way the commissions nowadays work is they give you a photo. People don't sit for days anymore, unless they're professional models. But especially a child. She was like, I think she's like 5 or 6 or something, or maybe younger. But so yeah, it was just a photo, and that was part of her personality, is that foot.
I want to talk about some really interesting things here on your the dark side of some of your drawings here. And you've got this because I want you to explain the rationale for some of these things. So I think it's because I think it's cool. It's because it's a stretch. It's different.
Yeah,
But
you're probably talking about like
the dark side of life.
Yes, those were early pieces. That was, I think, before I even started teaching. I was just exploring. I was just like, yeah, I wasn't even teaching it. I think I just finished high school, and so
You did that in high school?
what's up?
You did that in high school?
No, I think I just finished high school.
Okay.
When I did those. Is there a year on those?
Oh, and then this is the time you're still taking classes at the atelier.
Yeah, I was still taking. I was a student at the atelier, probably full time at that point, but I wasn't teaching yet. And so I was just like, I was a student. I wanted to study anatomy. I wanted to try to create illustrations with a story and with a scene, something happening. And I just kind of came up with some random ideas.
Yeah, because you get the juxtaposition of life and death series, graphite.
Yeah, that one, seriously, that one was just like, you're looking at the one with, it's like a weird looking person with a weird pregnant person.
This is the one with Cycle of Life 2.
Is that the chicken with the eggs?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's got the eyeball coming off, dangling off from the skull.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that
that's
one.
also just kind of like anatomy. I got that, all the bones and like the eggs coming out. And so the eggs, I was just like trying to shade the forms, so those were experimental. I never really did much more with those. I think there were just 3 drawings that I did.
You love, you got the Russian Bazaar.
Yeah.
That's also a really cool one. Really, really cool. I mean, just the technique and the style of, is this one of your, okay, this is an 08. Looks like you did that in 08. So that was some time ago.
I did a lot of Russian and Ukrainian themed artwork around that time.
Why? Just curious.
I guess at the time I was just exploring my history of my family. And then we also went on, my family went on a trip to Ukraine because I actually still have relatives that live on a farm in Ukraine. Just like very far from the city, like outside bathrooms. They have their chickens and they grow their own food.
Do you go back?
I've only been back once. So I was born there, but then I came here when I was 6, but then I went back once. And in that trip, I took a lot of photographs. And so a lot of paintings came out of that trip. Just because the subject matter is just so interesting, it's very real. There's a lot of humanity that comes out of those paintings. Yeah,
absolutely.
So,
and it's also great to kind of go back and see your heritage and your history. And
I also it was also good because I had an actual connection to these people. So so I did a lot of paintings with that subject.
Absolutely, and it shows. I mean, this one was also pretty good. I thought Enter Bedlam. You got these guys in suits.
2 guys, very vertical.
Yeah.
That was another experimental one. Also, I was also still a student. I think I did that one right after I did the Life and Death series. That one is just like, I just wanted to do some portraits and wanted to compose them in an interesting way rather than just doing a traditional portrait. I put like a cityscape in the background, and I wanted to experiment with a very different aspect ratio of the page. So I made a very long and skinny drawing. So yeah, it was also just experimental. I was a student, just trying things out.
Very, very cool. One thing that I did want to touch on was, we were talking earlier about stress. I mean, now, even though things are a little bit, different now because you've you're basically not only continuing on your craft, but you've got this other entrepreneurial side of you as well. But how stressful has it is it to be an artist? Because not everybody is doing what you're doing, and people who kind of want to pursue this sort of field, does it get more and more difficult to kind of survive without having your kind of skill sets to kind of branch out and
Without having a skill set, yeah.
Well, no, not the skill set of. I mean, it's obviously mandatory to be very good at what you do, and in the academic sense, right? And to be good that way. But you're actually talented in a lot of different things that are able to get your name out there in a different way, or get an audience.
Honestly, with that aspect of it, I actually think it's become easier. As far as regular people being able to market themselves, it's become a lot easier. Before social media and before the internet, if you wanted to market or advertise, like, you had to have a lot of money. There's just no other way of advertising yourself. Now you can just sit at home. You don't have to get with a gallery to promote you that has a location in the center of some kind of art mecca where a lot of collectors come. You can create your own website. You can get a following on social media, and people will buy your artwork online. It was way harder to do that before. Now, with that does come, I guess, some stress, because you can do it yourself now. Whereas before, if you were a really good artist, you could just hand it off to a gallery and they would do it for you. You could still do that, but now, because we can also do it ourselves, there's a lot more competition.
Right.
There's a lot more people that are able to market themselves, that have skill sets in networking and being able to promote themselves. They have good communication skills.
Correct.
And so now there's more competition. And so, yeah, it could be more stressful because everybody has to now be marketing
on
themselves.
Social media, marketing themselves, right?
But in a way, it's also easier because you can do it yourself.
Exactly. One of the other things that I want to talk to you about is in something that's really fascinated me, because you are leveraging so many of your different skill sets. Using your animation background to create all these compelling videos that are resonating with your audience and really connecting with them. And getting the results, because you're not just somebody that's going out there and just drawing. You're actually creating stories. You're creating stories that connect with people. You're creating characters that connect with people. You've got even these special effects. You've got these. You've got Skelly. Is it Skelly? Yeah.
Skelly.
You've got a character that you interact with that no one has ever seen before. So it brings a whole new level of excitement for people who are delving into the fine arts and learning about anatomy and getting people reinvigorated and interested in it. So what kind of motivated you to start Proko.com, or did you ever try things before Proko?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, I did a lot of things before Proko that kind of led up to it, and all these different things kind of came together and created it. So, as a kid, as a very young kid, I liked to make videos. My cousin and I had a camera, and we would just turn it on and just make funny videos. We would reenact movies. We actually remade Home Alone, in every scene of Home Alone.
That would be great to see.
It, we edited it. Yeah, so I liked making movies, just as a hobby. As also after that, before I even got into artwork and painting and drawing, I was into programming. My dad got me a book on Visual Basics programming, and I started making, programming games. I made a game called Who Wants to Win $1, where it was, questions and little animations. And that's actually my first experience with animation, was like little pixel animations in a game that I programmed. And it would ask questions about my family, and then if you got it right, I'd go on to the next question. And so I started dabbling in computer programming. And then, like I said, painting as a teenager, and then animation. And then also right after high school, along with some friends, we started experimenting with some businesses. So we made a taco shop finder in San Diego, because taco shops are really big in San Diego. And so this was like just before like Google Maps and like Yelp were big. It was like right when they were starting to get there, but we didn't know. And so we're like, people want to search for taco shops, and they go to our website. And that didn't work, obviously. So we created a nursing scrubs clothing line. I actually designed the nursing scrubs, and they were supposed to be like urban style, right? Where they had the little buttons on the shoulders, and the the logo and the pocket that would hold your pencil.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so I designed clothing, and we had to figure out how to sell it to these nurses, and that failed. Then we started, oh my God, this is the worst. We actually created a website to promote clubs. So I was a club promoter at a certain time.
That's the best.
Yeah. And I hate going to clubs. I don't dance. I don't do any of that. I like to stay home at night.
Oh,
So,
that's great.
yeah, so it was a website that would sell tickets to get to clubs, and it was called Clubless Now, and it was like, get on the list to get into the club. And that actually did pretty well for a little bit. Like a lot of the clubs in San Diego actually were on our website.
Really?
Yeah, and they were getting their guest lists on our website, and then every night they would print them out and use in their as their guest list. And we would sell tickets for like New Year's events. And a lot of clubs use it for selling their tickets. But eventually it kind of just stopped, like, as social media became more powerful, and these clubs started using their own websites to sell tickets, and then we just kind of forgot about it. And there were some others. Oh, I started Prokofolio, which was a website that made websites for artists. So as I mentioned, I made Steve Houston's website. He was one of the people I was trying to, I was saying like, hey, I'll make you a free website. And on the bottom of his website, it says Prokofolio. And I spent like 2 years on that. A lot of my time, a lot of money in getting it built. And it worked for a while, but, and I actually still manage a lot of artists' websites with that. But I'm not taking any more, I closed the sign up form because I just don't want to focus on.
You see, you should have developed Fine Art America.
Yeah, that was one of the competitors. Yeah, I mean, it does the same thing. I mean, they've expanded it to doing a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I was listening to that guy's story, and that was also pretty interesting. Again, just 3 guys. One guy is a programmer, right? And another guy is I don't know if he was a musician. It's like 3 friends, basically, that started the site. And he apparently started a site, I think, for the banking industry. But he used that framework, that footprint. Okay, and he ported it over to Fine Art America. And then he had 2 of his other friends that worked either on the layout and stuff. And then after they worked on it 9 months, they said it was just an incredible explosion of growth. Nothing's ever automatic, obviously. They try some stuff, but it was just really interesting to see how people create something completely, again, outside of their area. They're not artists, but no, they're not artists at all.
Nice.
Yeah, Fine Art America, I think, is it Fine Art America, I think? The one where people could, Yeah. And they're just talking about, how they've been just growing year over year. And it's just 3 people. So, I'm sorry, keep going on how that now got into Proko.
Oh, yeah. So, So all of those were good training for just how to run a business, right? Like, I mean, I was a kid. I was starting these just blind. I didn't know the first thing about making money. But every time one of these failed, I would learn something from it. And then by the time I started Proco, I was like, okay, I know what to focus on. Like, stop designing business cards, and like, don't spend 6 months trying to make the perfect website. Just focus on what needs to be done to actually make a difference in the world.
Yeah.
Like, focus on that, and then develop the business, or, not the business around it, but develop all the stuff when it's needed. Like, when I launched Proco, I didn't even have a website. It was just YouTube.
When was that? What year was that you launched Proco?
2012 or 13? I don't even remember anymore. 12 or 13.
Okay.
It was August 16, 2012, I think. But yeah, I didn't even have a website until like I published 3 videos already on YouTube. And by that point I was like, crap, like, I'm getting a lot of views. I need to get them on over to my website. So I just built a really quick WordPress site, just in like a day or two. I didn't spend much time. I just got a template. I didn't design it, even though I loved web design, and I did it for a living before I made Proco. Like, I made websites. I didn't waste my time designing it and building it from scratch, even though I could, because I knew that that's just a distraction. Like, it's not gonna do anything for that business at the time. I just focused on making more videos and trying to teach people how to draw. Then once I got enough of that audience, then I started figuring out, okay, now how do I get these, how do I start earning money from this following? Yeah, because if I don't have a following, there's no way I'm going to sell anything. So the first step is just grow a following. Then after I had a following, then I published all those videos along with a few premium videos as a DVD, and I started selling that, and that grew. And eventually, I was selling enough monthly of premium stuff that I was able to start hiring people to help me. So I started by hiring an editor to help me edit stuff. Then I started hiring animators to help me with, animating Skelly, like you saw. Who else? Let's see. Oh yeah, riggers, modelers that are, modeling all this stuff. Then I actually have 2 people that work here at my house. They help me with one helps me with marketing and social media and publishing, and the other helps me with just like every step of the production. So yeah, all this stuff. Oh, and as I was saying, like, bringing all those things together, early on I was doing programming. And so I was able to really quickly create this website, because I was familiar with programming, and I knew the technical side of putting together a website and doing it very quickly without wasting my time. And I was able to manage the website and update it. And then the animation helped me make my videos better. And my filming experience when I was a kid, when I was trying to remake the video, movies, like, that helped me be able to make a good video. Obviously, drawing and painting helped me teach drawing and painting. But all these things just kind of came together, and all the business experience I had helped me focus on making money. And so all these different disciplines kind of came together.
This is perfect. This is a perfect segue to what we're going to talk about with Jack of all trades. I had talked to a lot of people before about what it means to be a jack of all trades, and a lot of people would kind of react negatively to that, saying that, well, I mean, jack of all trades is really, so basically you're not an expert in anything and you're a master of nothing. Is that what you're saying? I'm like, well, no. I think that the definition of what it means, at least to me, it's not the same of what it meant, 15, 20 years ago, because I think that with proliferation of the internet and just having information out there, people have more access to that information. And that it is always advantageous for people to continuously learn new things. There's a quote from Steve Jobs. You can't connect the dots moving forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. Meaning that, as you learn particular skill sets and you gain that experience, that you may not see the vision of how you're going to use that at that point in time.
Right.
You only see how you can apply it after you gain all that experience and then start to leverage that particular skill set. You won't see it at the time that as you're learning the programming that you may use it for a business later, or your animation, or your drawing. So the thing is that there's always been this argument that, people having to be an expert and spend 10,000 hours in a particular field and an area to be respected. And that is true, especially for your core area of expertise, like, your drawing and your artistry. And that's the same for people who maybe go to school for engineering or go to school for design. But when you start to learn things that are kind of in a similar field, like photography, drawing, design, they're all very interconnected. And I argue that whatever time you may have spent, especially the time that you spent, 5-10 years developing a certain craft, to now move on to another craft, let's say to photography, you already now understand what value is, composition. You understand the rule of the thirds. You understand all these facets of designs that are kind of repeatable through all these different areas. And now as an entrepreneur, what you're trying to do is, the people who are successful are now the people who are now able to make those connections and use that experience. You don't have to be the expert like Robert Rodriguez, director in filming. You just need to know it enough to tell your story.
Yeah, you gotta be just dangerous, know enough just to be dangerous, right?
But even that is good because it's not like you didn't invest any time, right? Because you did it as a child, and you love storytelling, you love that stuff. And I do the same thing. I love video. I love telling a story. I created a movie when my grandfather had turned 100, and I created this movie poster and this DVD cover of my grandfather and my
that's cool.
my great grandfather and my parents, and I did everything in Photoshop, but I did it kind of like in a Drew Struzan format with photo manipulation at the time. But then the actual movie in itself, I painstakingly colorized all the pictures, and I created these special effects. I try to animate the still pictures to tell part of the story. But all those experiences that you engage in really help to set the stage for some of the stuff you're doing forward. And I think that's why that, talking to other creative people who do what you do, that leveraging other talents is a wonderful thing to do. And that the message that I always preach to people is that maybe you don't need to be an expert in drawing. You may even discover something about yourself that you didn't know. So so these kind of experiences with this, self-discovery, learning different skill sets, you're picture perfect example that kind of personifies like the modern Leonardo da Vinci, that master of many, but in this case, maybe not the master of many things, but master enough to be successful and tell your story and tell it effectively by leveraging those things.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a master at any of those. I mean, not even close. Like filmmaking, I know very little about it, but I know enough. I know just enough. And then with animation, I'm also not an expert at it. Like if I got hired by Pixar, I'd be the worst one there for animation. I'm not great at animation, but I know enough.
Exactly.
And but you do need to have a focus.
Of course.
Like drawing, fine art, that's my focus. That's my one thing that I'm actually trying to get a mastery level at. And then I have all these other things that I'm interested in and that I do my best to learn as much as possible with it because I find them interesting, but I'm never going to reach a level of mastery in any of those other things.
But that's why you hire now.
What's that?
But that's why you hire those people.
That's
right?
why I hire now, yeah. But when I started Proko, I had to do those things on my own. I didn't have any money to hire anybody, so so I had to do them all on my own. Eventually, though, I was able to hire, but by being able to do those things, I could communicate with the animators.
Absolutely. You can speak the language.
Them because I know what good animation is, and I could specifically talk to them in their language of what to correct. So yeah, knowing just enough to be able to communicate with your employees, that alone is invaluable.
Another person that I've known that makes furniture out of goes to the salvage yard and he looks at spare airplane parts, B-52 bombers, and he creates these, beautiful pieces of furniture. And the story there is just that even though he's an engineer, and he's not the best artist, he still knows how to communicate an idea, how to sketch things out of what he's looking for. And then at the end of the day, he creates these, gorgeous pieces of furniture, artwork, I would say. Taking these plain wings, he uniquely finds a way to fit these pieces together. But then that's his engineering background. He's been doing it for, 30 years. So he's now leveraging that skill set in order to build something that's completely new, even though he's not an artist. And that's why I kind of argue that he's now creating something completely new, and he's not even a furniture designer, but he's become very successful at it. And it's, again, another way of people that are able to kind of leverage other expertise and be able to create something new. It's really fascinating. It's fascinating what human beings can actually do, when they start to focus. And like you said, you do need that focus.
Another book, while we're on that, is Mastery by, I believe, Robert Greene. Shit. Here, let me double check that.
Mastery by Robert Greene.
Mastery by Robert Greene. Very good book for anyone that's trying to master anything, any kind of art form, any craft. Must listen. I think maybe my favorite book, not art related, is that one. Yeah.
I'm going to put that in my book list. We talked about how you're able to kind of connect different kinds of skill sets to grow your business. As we talk about redefining art education and what you're doing with Proko.com, a lot of people use a combination between books and videos, and obviously just having a classroom setting where you're getting feedback is probably the most important thing. There's only so much you can learn from a book. But in your experience with people who have given feedback with learning things from your videos, just how good can people get with videos alone?
From videos alone, I'm not sure. And the problem is I don't interact in person with any of my online students, right? They're all online, so I'm not sure what else they're doing. They might be taking classes in their town. So I'm not sure. And I've only been doing this for a few years, so it's kind of hard to see if anybody that starts from the beginning and takes all my courses and works on it for 5 to 10 years, where they can get. I don't know yet. I just kind of started doing this. But the way my gut tells me that online video at the way it is now should be treated like a book. It's a good addition to personal classes at a school. You take classes, like I took classes at an atelier, but I still bought books and like Alla Prima and Loomis, and I still studied from them. And they were great companions to my studying at school at the Watts Atelier. So I think online video at the way it is now is like a good book where you can add it on to training with an apprentice because online video is not going to replace that everyday critiquing, that constant, that personalized training where someone looks at your stuff and says, you really need to study perspective. And here's a little lesson on perspective, which I think you need to know at the moment. And they'll spend 10 minutes demoing something about perspective that you need to know. You're not going to get that with a video unless you can self-monitor but no, nobody can do that. Yeah, you can't. So I think it's getting better. Eventually, online might become as good as personal training, but that's only when there will actually be online classes that are as personal as it being in real life. So but it might actually be better. It might actually end up eventually being better than personal classes, because eventually there might be communities created where you're getting critiques from 100 people.
That's happening now, isn't it?
It is, but I don't think it's reached the potential yet. I don't think it's gotten as good as online or personal training, because you're getting critiques from 100 people, but there are 100 people that are either worse than you or maybe a little bit better than
I was just gonna say that, right? So there's probably a danger in that too, because you might be getting critiqued by the people who don't know what they're talking about.
Yes, and I see that all the time, where someone posts something online and someone will critique them, and it's like it's totally wrong, totally bad advice, and so it's hard. It's like, as a student, if somebody online tells you something, or you just, like, when do you listen? Who do you listen to? You got so many people telling you stuff. What's right? So that has to be figured out, because that's a problem. But I think, and I'm working on this, there needs to be mini schools, mini online communities built around really good training, and where there's camaraderie.
Yeah.
And there's good people that are specifically helping everybody.
Correct. I completely agree.
Yeah. So, eventually I want to build something like that around my courses, is on Proko.com have an actual community of people that submit their work for critiquing, and people can critique each other's work, and the critiques could be like upvoted or downvoted, and so everybody will have a certain rating. Like if somebody keeps giving bad critiques, like eventually, like, people they're not going to trust them, right? So there has to be some kind of level of filtering, and good critiques should be rewarded, bad critiques should be punished, I guess. So yeah, I think there could be something like Yelp, where Yelp is getting more and more sophisticated. And, in the beginning there was a lot of issues with it, but now it's getting more sophisticated. You can trust it a lot more now.
I think Khan Academy kind of delves into a lot of that stuff. I think Khan Academy has that community, right? Because he's got, tons of videos, and they've been doing a lot of experiments with using Khan Academy in school systems. Mm-hmm. where the teachers can kind of leverage the lessons and the work.
Yeah.
And then you got people that are that get like these little markers or things like that if they've done it correctly, and they get feedback. They ask questions about certain things. Art is a little harder, right, because it's visual versus whether it's math or something like that, right? That's kind of definite. When it comes to art, you, like you say, you need somebody to come in and look at it, mark it up, and that sort of thing. I see that on some Facebook fan pages like Level Up. Level Up is like a fan page where it's a Facebook page that is geared toward concept artists who are doing character development and things like that. Whether it's a superhero or whether it's someone that's doing a portrait, they all kind of come in and chime in and give their critique. But even the level of people who make the criticism, the way they say it, you already know that by the tone and the way they say it, they're not an expert. Because anybody who can be respected won't even say it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, someone with a a high level expertise and someone that's mastered their craft. They know how to communicate this stuff, and they'll also be able to spot people that are good at it. And like, I know what you're talking about, where it's like there's a comment and it's like every sentence is missing its punctuation and every other word is misspelled, and they're critiquing the work, and like you can tell they just don't understand
Exactly.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like, how do you take this person seriously? It's like these people just like to jump around
But
and make
you
comments.
said, you responded, you said, thanks for the feedback or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful either. Like, that's where it comes. Like, who knows? Maybe this guy is really good, and he's just having a bad day or something. But I don't want to be disrespectful to him.
Traditional and digital medium. Which obviously you seem to prefer traditional. I mean, I also myself, my videos are all traditional. I even though I do a lot of digital painting, for some reason, just connecting with the actual pencil and the pen or the paints is just way better. Obviously in the industry, in automotive, it's all about business when you're doing digital. It's communicating and getting the renderings over to engineering quickly, and it's not art. We don't care about art. We care about the idea. It doesn't even have to be completely rendered. So as far as using digital tools, do you have a preference, or does that help in some of your creativity? Because it is just a tool. And do you find people who just want to go into digital, do you find that to be a mistake rather than starting by drawing by hand?
It depends on the end goal. But I think that if somebody is really against it, then yeah, and that is a mistake. Like, why? Why don't you want to learn the craft the way every other master has learned the craft? There's obviously something to it. Why not? It's like what we were talking about before, cross-training. Learning how to do it with a pencil on paper is going to help you be able to do it with a stylus. You're going to learn something from the pencil and the paper that you won't, that is going to be harder to learn with a stylus. So why not? Why are you so against it? Uh,
As you're drawing, I know that with classes, whether it's at CCS Art Center, teaching people in the product design, they teach a lot of motor skill development. So a lot of it is the exercise, right? It's the exercise and the continuous motion, and you're not going to be able to do that in a little Cintiq. You just cannot get that kind of flow, and that's kind of what you're doing. Even when you're drawing lines, we're doing perspective and stuff. When you're drawing larger pictures, it's being able to get the full rotation. Ellipses have always baffled people. It's very difficult to do, but just trying to do it on a smaller screen or using a Cintiq or Wacom is just impossible. Just to kind of coordinate between the screen and the tablet. It's okay for digital painting, but when you're using a Cintiq tablet, we've always stressed. I get these questions from students saying that I'd like to just do digital. So you're going to make a mistake, because you can't. You need to develop. There's a lot to be said about the motor skill development that has to have that connection by hand on paper before you port. And then the digital stuff is just a tool. That's all it is. Once your basics and fundamentals are down, you use the digital just as a tool, medium. Like anything else, like a medium, painting a paintbrush, whatever. But
watercolor,
basics,
oil,
have to be solid. Basics have to be solid.
Yeah. So right now, the technology is not good. It's like not even close to being able to replicate the tactile feedback of a pencil on paper. I could feel what I'm doing with a pencil. right? I can close my eyes. I can tell what kind of line I'm putting down. I can feel it. There's just that feedback. With a stylus, you don't feel anything. It's super smooth. Even if you get a stylus that has a little, that vinyl or something, I don't know what it's called, but it kind of has a little bit of a give. It's not the same. You don't feel it, especially with painting. If you're doing digital painting, oh my God, that's not like with a brush. Feeling the paint go on the surface and how the bristles are bending and how you're twisting it and how you're moving the paint. There's no way you can get that kind of subtlety. And so learning that, how to manipulate paint and how to manipulate charcoal with traditional media is so useful. And another thing is that with these traditional media, you can't just like select something and move it. You have to have the discipline to be able to plan things out. And so that kind of discipline makes you a better artist in the long run. And so, and if you're purely digital and you learn with digital, you're gonna use some of those tools that are so easy to do with digital to create, lazy habits. And you're not going to develop certain skills that you would develop
Yes.
if you were working with traditional media.
And going back to your point, that is if, what you're planning to do with the work is to be a professional at it. If it's one of these things where you're just trying to learn, something just to kind of expand and just learn something new, that's a different thing. It all depends on what your approach is and what your main goal is.
Yeah.
He agrees, your dog, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Humor. Let's talk about humor in your videos. How much time do you spend with creating these stories now? I mean, with crafting your...
Oh, geez. There's a few hundred hours that goes into each video. Not of my hours, but of everybody that works on it together. There's a few hundred hours that goes into each one.
Oh my.
Yeah, it is a long process.
That...
I mean, I could go through the whole process, but...
No, you don't have to. But that's... oh boy. That's a lot. But
It's
when you started out, though, I mean, I noticed that you created... I don't know if it was you, but I was particularly struck by the animations, like when you're tilting your head and making sure that, when you're going through the proportions and the lines were kind of, I don't know whether you're using After Effects, but, tracking, right?
After Effects, motion tracking.
Yeah, which is really, really, really cool. But at that time, when you were first, kind of bootstrapped and starting it, you still were in front of the white background. I think you were. I think you did. Right?
It was from the first video.
Yeah. So still, that had to have taken a lot of time just from that standpoint. Just being
the first
on your
video
own.
took a very long time. Even though it was very simple and very short, it took a long because I was trying to figure everything out. I didn't have any systems yet. Once I finished 3 or 4 videos, I developed systems to speed up things that had to be repeated a lot. And I didn't have to solve as many problems because I had already solved them in previous videos. But yeah, some things just take a long time to do. Research, writing scripts, perfecting them, filming, editing. Now there's 3D animation that we add to them. So we have to model.
And that takes time to render.
Forms.
Yep.
We have to rig. We have to make sure the motion is correct. Like right now we're rigging muscles, and that is like, it takes a few weeks to rig every single muscle. Because it's so complex, and we just go back and forth and like, no, that needs tweaking. The tendon is not attaching correctly, or it's like then we have to texture everything, render, animate, then render,
and then composite everything together.
Yeah.
Especially when you're interacting with Skelly.
Yeah. And then we have a lot of like actual human models, and so we have photo shoots, and then we have hundreds. Well, let's see. We have a lot of hours of footage of these models, and so we have to find footage to fit into each piece, and like that. That alone takes a long time. And then I have to draw visuals. Yeah, there's hundreds of hours of work that goes into each one.
Do you get a lot of input from some of your teammates that are working with you as far as the scripting, or do you create all the scripts yourself?
Oh, like some of the jokes? Oh, most of the jokes are planned, yeah.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Did you take acting classes, by the way?
No.
No? Okay.
No. I don't think I'm that good at it. Look, it's always cheesy, but that's kind of the...
I know, but that's all part of the
yeah, that's
the fun.
part of the charm. Yeah.
All right, so we talked about... we actually talked about the books, and we actually talked about transitioning to an entrepreneur, and then we talked about art education. One of the things that I do want to talk about is futureofproko.com. We talked about community.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much, that is the vision there, is creating more of a community, a full-on, a school that people could hopefully replace actual schooling with. Because right now it's not that. It's like an addition, like a book. And so creating something that can actually take a student from beginner to advanced just by using the website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I think this is going to kind of be the future of a lot of learning in general.
Yeah.
Is that people are going to be going online. And
Yes.
I think it's just going to be a terrific thing. All right, one of the other cool things that I was playing around with was your app, and I'm assuming that your app is kind of like a replacement for this guy here. So let's talk about the process. Was this something that you thought of as a result of people giving you feedback saying, hey, it'd be nice to kind of have an app that replicates something like this?
I think it was a little bit of both. I definitely saw the need for an app like that because I kind of wanted it. I saw a lot of like anatomy apps in the market, but none of them were posable. It was just like the neutral anatomical position, and then you can rotate around it, but you can't move the body, and pose it in different positions. And so I thought, okay, well, this is definitely needed. And so I partnered up with a few guys in Australia, and we started developing it. But yeah, I asked around, and people was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And I don't think I ever asked my audience if they wanted it, but I think I saw people talking about like that would be a good idea. But I definitely saw a need for it from people. And I knew that other people were going to start developing one soon. And so I kind of wanted to get in there. And I already had the model for it, the 3D model, because I had Skelly created. And so we just went for it. We just had to create the UI and make it into an app. Eventually, we want to make it into have to include muscles. But right now, that's a very difficult problem to solve because even on a computer, generating every muscle to accurately deform according to the skeletal position, the processing power that's required is very, it's a lot. So even a computer is slow. So doing it on a mobile phone is going to be very, very hard on the processor. So we have to figure out a way to make all these muscles deform without using too many resources of the phone. So that's a hard problem. Also, just making it deform accurately in any position, that's hard. because we can't do it in Maya. Maya is the software that we use to make our videos with. The rigging systems in there are very complex. We could do a lot. They make movies with Maya, right? So you could, you can create very, very realistic systems. Our app is built on Unity, which is a gaming engine, and the rigging potential in there is very limited. And so being able to create realistic muscle deformations is much harder in there. But we're working on it. Hopefully we'll have something, but it'll be a while from now. But that's the vision, is making a realistic substitute for that little mannequin wooden thing, which I don't think anybody actually uses. I know you have it on your desk, but have you ever used
No.
it? Yeah. Yeah, because the thing is, like, okay, right now the app is just a skeleton, right? It doesn't have the surface forms of like the muscles, the thigh and biceps and all that. But I'm with my anatomy course, if you really know anatomy, if you know how to draw the human body, you can start with a skeletal base and you should be able to add all the muscles on top. And so to create a pose, all you really need is the skeletal landmarks. If you know the surface bones, adding those muscles is easy. So having those skeletal landmarks is, for me, is probably more useful than having a mannequin with simplified forms, because I can create the simplified forms based on that in my mind. It's easier than getting landmarks in the right place.
Right. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that another thing that you've done here is just the level of flexibility, like you were saying, to be able to, every single joint you're able to move, and just having that flexibility. Do people, and the fact that you can kind of zoom in and zoom out, so if you wanted to focus just on the head and then start doing lighting studies, it's really a really nice tool and a very convenient tool to kind of just take that rather than taking your own pictures, right, of something like this and doing the light, because that's what I do typically, is that.
That's another thing, is in the app you can control the light direction. With a mannequin, like, yeah, you can set up a lamp, but come on. Like I said, no one does that.
I'm ashamed to say I do that. Not for this one, but for some of my other automotive stuff. I'll actually do, when I'm ready for a tutorial, I'll sit there and I'll light things up. But yeah,
I'm
you're right.
With the mannequin, the figure thing.
Yeah, and it's not that I don't want to. I want to do it.
Right.
Have people at all sent in things that they have used? Like if they've drawn something, do people send you work?
Yeah. Well, obviously there's a lot of student work that comes in, because most of my audience are students, and so they've sent in a lot of the work that they used to study anatomy with the app. But there was also a lady, I forgot her name, but she did a whole children's book, and she used the app to create the poses.
Really?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, she started, it was like in her concepting stage, she used it to pose, and then from there she created the drawings.
And it's probably even better when people have the iPad too, like when they have a larger screen and they can use that too. It's probably...
Yeah. I've actually found my iPhone 6, I have the Plus, so it's pretty big. I found this to be better than my iPad for the app, because I don't know, it's easier to pose. You'd think that a bigger screen would be better, but it's like, this is easier to hold, and I use my thumbs to pose real quick. It's big enough to see everything, and it's big enough to be able to touch specific spots. With the iPad, it's harder to hold it, and so, yeah, this is definitely big enough to do everything on it. It's very convenient.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, a lot of people think you need an iPad for the app, but you really don't.
That's true. Yeah. I agree. Let's talk about your courses. You've got portrait drawing course, you got the figure drawing fundamentals course, torso, things that are more focused on particular areas, legs and arms.
Yeah, the torso, legs, and arms, that's anatomy. It's all part of the same course. I've split it up into 3 different courses because each one is going to be really long. But yeah, the whole thing is an anatomy package. The arms and legs aren't available yet. I'm still working on torso.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any courses that are really popular with people who would think that the portrait drawing is pretty popular with people?
Portrait is popular just because that's what I started with, and those videos on YouTube have grown a lot and they have a lot of views and stuff. But I actually suggest people to start with my figure course.
The fundamentals, right?
Yeah, the figure fundamentals, because it has a lot of fundamental concepts in it. Where when you're just learning how to draw, these are concepts you need to know. Whereas the portrait class is specifically about learning the structure of the face, the anatomy of each feature, and then laying in the face. Like, it doesn't have fundamental drawing concepts in it.
Do you find that's a challenge, or when people buy the course and they get into it, do they get a little bit frightened by the level of work? Or do you find that the people who buy it are actually more matured and they don't have a problem with it because drawing is more of a relaxation for them?
I haven't had much of a problem with that. I think my audience quickly realizes that I go deep into this stuff. I go very detailed because all my videos are like that. And so, and I have a lot of free content on YouTube. And so people know what my videos are like. We don't waste any time. They're very edited, very planned out. So every second of the video is information being thrown at you. And so there's a lot of information to absorb and a lot of practice that needs to be done with every video. And people know that from watching just a few of my videos. So I think the people that aren't really that serious, I think the free videos are probably good enough for them. So they never go on to buy the premium stuff. So it's like, okay, just watch my YouTube videos. So the people that end up buying they're the more serious students that are going to spend more time practicing and stuff. So I haven't had that problem.
With hundreds of hours, or like 100 hours in a video, how are you able to balance the time to do those and create these courses? Because it's a lot of level work, right, that you're doing for both, keeping the channel going with.
They're part of the same thing.
Okay.
So I'll have.
So you master plan maybe a little bit.
That?
You master plan a little bit as you're planning out the videos. You can still have maybe a certain segment that's focused on the YouTube stuff, but then you continue on shooting to create the more expanded version for your courses. Or no?
Well, what I do is I focus on creating the premium version, the one that the people that paid are going to get. I make that one, and then actually in the script, I'll mark a bunch of text blue that is going to be only for premium. And everything else I'll chop off, I'll chop those out, and then there's my free video. So yeah, the free videos that go on YouTube are just portions of the full premium video. So I don't have to make like a unique free video.
I gotcha. You just kind of all planned it in advance. This whole interview has really turned out to be just chock full of terrific information. And we covered so many different aspects. We've talked about your entrepreneurship, your courses and your talent, and also looking at all your different expertise, that you've had that's kind of helped you in your business and helped you to expand and grow. It's really been a pretty big learning experience, even for me, to again listen to you and talk about your craft, and I really can't thank you enough. I think it's really important. It's quite inspirational. I think people really need to understand that when you put your mind into something, and you believe in something, you believe in a greater picture, something bigger than yourself, that you can accomplish great things. And all it takes is just that focus. Even, I try to tell people that even if you tackle something like drawing, and just getting a little bit of that success, that helps build your confidence, that helps you to believe that you can do something that you never thought was possible by yourself.
Yeah. So one more thing is people, I do want to offer your viewers like a discount if they do end up on my site and they want to buy something, or if they want to look into the courses. There's a bunch of free stuff available, so they could, feel free to enjoy all the hundreds of hours of free stuff on there. But if they want to get any of the premium courses, I created a coupon, Driven to Draw.
Awesome.
So at checkout, they'll get 25% off of anything. So
I tell you what, listening to this, if you guys listen to this this full podcast and watch this video on YouTube, I think you're going to realize what you're going to be getting from Stan. I mean, if you even look at his free videos in itself, the amount of information and how serious he is with what he does, it all shows in his work. Any person that works this hard to provide his fan base with something and help people to be a little bit more creative. And I think Stan does a fantastic job of that. Sometime later in the future, it'd be great to have you back for another interview sometime down the road. And once again, we will see you here next time, everybody, on Driven to Draw. Once again, I want to say thanks to Stan.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you, Stan. That's a wrap on Driven to Draw. Just a couple things before you go. One, if you enjoyed this episode and found it useful, let me know your thoughts and provide me some feedback on iTunes. Just click on the link below on the show notes. I would sincerely appreciate it. It would mean so much to me. The second thing is, remember that I do believe in you. You can be creative if you set your mind to it. All you need to do is just try. Just creating a sketch every single day, spending 10-15 minutes a day, you're going to see your skills grow exponentially. Take that action. Peace out. I'll see you folks next time on Driven to Draw. Have a good one.